Hello, I am your host, Kathy Chester, and welcome to the Move It or Lose It podcast, a podcast about all things that move the mind, body, and soul. The Move It or Lose It podcast is for information, awareness, and inspirational purposes only. I am not a doctor, and I don't even play one on TV, so please consult your doctor before making any medical decisions. The views expressed by advertisers, guests, or contributors are their opinions and not necessarily the views of the Move It or Lose It podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Move It or Lose It. Today I've got Evan from Pulse. You might have seen a lot pushed lately.
Ethan.
What did I say?
Evan.
Evan, oh my gosh, I even messed it up again. We've got bloopers, lots of them, of first names and last names that I messed up. Okay, Ethan, I almost said Evan again.
Got it.
Wow.
That's an easy one to confuse. I don't blame you.
Oh my goodness, Ethan from Pulse. So Pulse, you might have seen on Instagram or Facebook being like pushed, and I was super curious about it a while ago. So got in touch, and we're excited to do this. So Ethan, what is Pulse?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me, Kathy.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to be here. I love the podcast.
I'm so glad that Evan's not on. I'm so glad that Ethan's on.
Appreciate
really confusing. Absolutely.
Yeah, so a little bit of an origin story about Pulse. So Pulse was initially a niche weightlifting product that was designed to help you enhance your mind-muscle connection and improve targeted muscle activation. So I've been
Speaking right up my alley.
exactly. Yep. So my background is in fitness, and our other co-founder Cole's background is in fitness. We've both been weightlifting for over 15 years, and we're actually lifelong training partners. And we created the product because we noticed that a lot of times when we were weightlifting, we would struggle to properly engage and activate a certain muscle. And you could notice it really easily because you wouldn't feel it properly contract. And that led to having lagging body parts. So for me, it was always my arms. I was always very conscious about my form. I would make sure I was doing everything right. I'd watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and for whatever reason, that mind-body connection just wasn't there for me, and I struggled to really feel that exercise or that movement working my muscle properly. And same went for Cole. So the whole product was based on this old bodybuilding technique called muscle tapping, which is actually when your spotter or training partner gently taps on whatever muscle you're trying to target and activate, and that really helps draw your focus to that muscle and help you properly engage it so that you can have a more effective workout.
Yeah.
And Cole and I actually started implementing that muscle tapping into our training after reading about it
such a cool
online.
thing.
Yeah, and it shocked us how well it worked.
Yeah.
So we would do it, and people would kind of give us some strange looks at the gym because we were doing it all the time. And we thought to ourselves, is there a product out there that does something similar to this? And after doing a bunch of research and looking for something that would provide that cue, we found nothing. As we continued to do it, continued to see results doing it, we both thought, look, this is something we're super passionate about. Let's help other people that are weightlifting, that want to build their best physiques, and create a product that does this.
Right.
So years later, after thinking of this idea, we actually approached a product development studio called Modality. They're based in Salt Lake City, Utah. And as we're going through the ideation process, we thought to ourselves, how can we actually mimic this tapping feeling onto someone's body? That's when Modality actually said to us, you can use vibration. And at this point, we were just thinking, okay, let's just create this tap. That's going to draw the user's attention again to that muscle they're trying to target. But we didn't know anything about vibration, and we started doing all this research, and it turned out that vibration has actually been used for performance and recovery for over a decade, but primarily in high-end training facilities, and really not accessible use. It's mainly was used in whole body vibration plates, which is when you stand on a vibrating platform, and that actually forces your muscles to try and stabilize themselves while you work out, which in turn leads to more fiber recruitment. So we found this idea of whole body vibration and said, what if we tie similar frequencies to our product, and then in addition to that, mimic that attentional cue with the tap or
Mm,
pulsating feeling directly onto the user's skin. And that
right.
was really how the Pulse device was born.
Wow.
And then more recently, after being on the market and doing paid advertising for close to 2 years now, uh,
Uh,
we've gotten a ton of different feedback from physical therapists,
yeah, I'm
athletic
sure.
trainers. Yeah, really just anybody that's involved
Mhm.
in the health and technology
Yeah.
space. And we
Well, I
started.
got as first to my thought, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many things I could do with this."
Exactly, and again, as 2 guys that really just built this product because they love the gym,
Right.
we were shocked at first, because that wasn't our intention,
Yeah.
but then the feedback became so overwhelming, specifically over this last year, that we were like, "Okay, we need to start, um, targeting these physical therapists and other people that
Right.
are working with patients, in
Yes.
really any sort of capacity."
Mhm.
Um, and once we started really deep diving into that, we
Mhm.
started doing a lot of R&D as to how we could manipulate the back end settings to actually benefit a much wider range of people
Sure.
than just a weightlifter. Um,
Yeah.
but we started getting a ton of feedback from people that were using this in conjunction with their rehabilitation protocols for ACL recovery, stroke patients that were dealing with poor motor function.
Right. I was gonna say stroke because I work with a lot of patients that have had strokes.
Mhm.
And so that was like one of the first things I thought is like when I work with my stroke victims, like that is a huge thing because they've got so many areas that if they could just have that, I was like, wow, that would be awesome to be able
Yeah,
to use. So that was so cool. And then, and thinking with like all the autoimmune patients and things like that. So it's like non-ending. You can like it could be used for so many things, which I'm
absolutely.
sure is in your brain. Like this can go so many places.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually ended up hiring 2 muscle physiologists based in the UK to basically compile a literature review, an internal literature review that pulled together all of the existing research on all of the
Mm-hmm.
different applications for local vibration. And that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the best decisions we ever made because we didn't
Yeah.
understand the big scope of how many different people this could benefit until we
Right.
performed that literature analysis. And what was really nice for us, and we're blessed for this, is the fact that so many different researchers have done the heavy lifting and basically said, okay, vibration works for X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't work
Right.
for these other applications. So all we really had to do was just do a deep dive into all the literature and then apply that to our product and do our own independent testing. And that's how we've gotten to the point where we are today. Because now, again, it started off as this niche weightlifting product. Now we
Sure.
have warm up settings,
Yeah.
performance settings, which are built for workouts, recovery settings, which are built
Yeah.
as general wellness applications like pain reduction. And then
Yeah.
next week, which I'm sure we'll get into later, we're actually releasing rehab specific settings as well.
Really? I was
Yeah,
going to
so
ask that. That's really cool. So when you said
yeah,
the pain reduction, so you can put that on to help with pain as well.
yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have multiple different recovery settings that are
Okay.
built specifically for pain relief. One is built for really gentle stimulation to help
Uh,
isolate that pain, and the other is for really harsh pain.
mhm.
But those recovery settings operate at much higher frequencies that have been shown to help with things like blood flow,
Yeah.
um, and we have gotten some incredible feedback about, because it's really a hands-free alternative to something like a
Uh,
massage gun, but on a
right.
smaller and more subtle scale. And a lot of the feedback we were getting was the reason that this is so great is because one, you can put it anywhere and you can go on about your day.
Right.
Two, it's so gentle and almost
Mhm.
unnoticeable at times, which is great for someone that's
Wow.
dealing with a really painful area because you can't
Sure.
use something like a massage gun on that area
Exactly.
necessarily. So for elderly people, especially,
Mhm.
it's a really nice, gentle modality to just put into your day-to-day routine to help with
Right.
any sort of recovery that you might need.
Sure.
The
Now,
Move It or Lose It podcast is proudly sponsored by Disrupting MS Together, designed to help you take control of your wellness while living with multiple sclerosis. Disrupting MS Together aims to increase mobility through functional movement. Coaches Kathy Chester and Mally Witt seek to connect the mind, body, and spirit with guided, focused online workouts and coaching. You'll get targeted workouts sent directly to your email and Q&A sessions with licensed coaches, early access to podcast episodes with experts in the industry, group workout sessions through Zoom, and curated content that you won't find anywhere else. Early bird pricing is only available for the pilot program, so don't wait. Check it out now. The program includes a tremendous amount of benefit from seasoned coaches who also live and thrive with multiple sclerosis. Learn more and take the leap today. Visit www.msdisrupted.com to learn more and snag your spot now while you can.
Sure. Now, can you turn it up for if you want it to be stronger? Are you able to turn
Absolutely.
it up? Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say we have this intensity slider, so you can
Mhm.
actually adjust the intensity of the vibration right there. Some people, if you might have some higher muscle density or higher body
Mm,
fat, you might
right.
want some extra pressure on those
Yeah.
vibrations as well, which is why we actually created a strap too for your arms, legs, and shoulders.
Yeah. Right.
So again, if you have maybe an area that's a little more dense, you can throw the strap on and get that added
Right.
stimulation.
Very
Um,
smart.
yeah, but our product mostly is designed to stimulate the skin and actually
Yeah.
modulate those pain sensors. So even if you're adding that extra pressure, it's not going to have some super magic difference because the
Right.
real bread and butter of our product is the ability to actually stimulate those mechanoreceptors, which is just your skin
Mm,
receptors, and basically confuse them for things like a pain relief application,
right.
which then can allow you to perform movements pain free, which has been great. Um,
Right. Which
that
is so great for so many of us because as we're moving on with the different autoimmune diseases, one of our biggest things is stop handing us so many pills. We don't want to take all of this. Stop giving it to us. So a lot of us have gone away from that. And especially our newly diagnosed are like, no, we don't want this. So a lot of us have gone away with that and done, which has been great for someone like me to teach movement instead of that and watch their serotonin levels come up, watch them get stronger and say, now see, we didn't have to take all those medicines now.
Yep,
Watch what our bodies can do. So it's that just adds to it. Like
totally.
another thing that you don't need to take medication for. Let's just let this do what it's supposed to do and now just rest for a bit.
Totally. And on that same note too, some of the feedback we've gotten is a lot of the other technologies on the market, they might be wired, they might be super bulky. I know specifically for drop foot, they have a lot of big
Yes.
braces that
Yes.
might not be the most aesthetically pleasing thing. So one of the best pieces of feedback we've gotten is the device is so small, it can fit
Yes.
under clothing. If you want to hide it, feel free. If you
Yeah.
want to just use it at home, feel free. Whatever you want to do it, and it can help you again with those things like pain relief
For
um,
sure.
in a way that doesn't make it catch someone's eye or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so I'll go back because I want to get back to that too with you. But so I want to go back to some of the questions I have for you, or else we're going to go on forever because I
Yeah,
could
thank you
just
for
chat
letting
with
me
you.
ramble.
Oh,
I
I was
appreciate
like, oh,
it.
I'm so interested. I could just go on forever. Um, so we already kind of went like how it began, but I want to go went back to like you and your friend were doing like working out and in a better way you could do it. So as far as the hormonal system, how does it work different for like does it work different for like a guy than a woman or does it work the same? Do you
Yes.
see the same results?
Yeah, so our product won't have a dramatic it won't have a dramatic effect on your hormones just because it operates at such a low amplitude. So like comparing us to
Uh,
whole body vibration could increase your testosterone fairly substantially, all things considered,
right.
and have other hormonal effects. Our device is so gentle and again operates at such a low amplitude that you're
So a
not
female is not going to be full of testosterone and be like,
Exactly.
ouch.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yep, exactly. So you won't have some sort of crazy effect or crazy noticeable difference. With that
right.
said, there are some definitely some lower end hormonal effects
Yeah.
that have been noticed, especially with our higher frequency settings, like our recovery settings.
Sure.
Like one of the really big ones is actually the release of endorphins. So something that we've been told is that it can actually help relax you,
Yeah.
and that has actually been shown to help just improve pain as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
eh, which is incredible. So some of our, again,
And moods.
settings, yeah, will have that kind of effect. But aside from that, there's no really concrete evidence we have that it's having a
Mm.
dramatic hormonal effect. There might be some stress relief associated with it. Like there's actually
Yeah.
some other products that use vibration for that specific use case,
Right.
which is pretty cool. But again, no dramatic
Yeah.
differences to hormones, which is good, honestly, in our
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, again, you've got it in a lighter place. It's not going to be this like huge thing that makes sense. And I can definitely say yes to the bulky braces. The ones they give you that are like, or they say, or you get this one for, 10,000, that would be the one that would help us. But
Yep.
they give us these giant things that if you can even walk in them, they're Velcro, so they stick together. It's a pain, absolute a pain. But
Yep.
we can't stand that part. So let's see, device for that relates to, yeah, one that we question I had was cognitive function and motor skill improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what our device was built for. So going back to that muscle tapping concept, our
Yeah.
device really is meant to stimulate both your skin and the muscle, but mainly your skin because it's so
Mm.
gentle. In terms of just attentional focus,
Uh,
our device, and I may have mentioned this earlier, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but essentially what it does is it's creating an attention draw by stimulating those mechanoreceptors in your skin and telling your central nervous system, hey, pay attention to over here. So
yeah.
for an inhibited muscle group that might be really weak or you have trouble engaging it, it comes in a lot of handy by stimulating the skin. And there's really no other products that have such a focus on engaging your skin. So that's a really big differentiator. And then the second part is actually stimulating the muscle itself, which our device can trigger what's called the tonic vibration reflex, which is essentially your stretch reflex. And
Mhm.
by doing that, you're actually creating a proprioceptive enhancement that will give you more muscular awareness. This typically only happens above 30 hertz, which is higher frequencies. So
Right.
some of our settings won't cause this to happen, and you'll really get those proprioceptive benefits from your skin. But a lot of our settings will actually trigger that tonic vibration reflex, and again, enhance your proprioception even further through
Yeah.
that. And the nice thing is, by providing this sensory input, a lot of people see substantial benefits with their motor function as well,
Right.
because you're essentially helping your body move properly. Uh,
Right.
and again, since this feels a lot different from a typical muscle stimulator or something like that,
Sure.
because it's essentially, again, just toning your brain on a specific location,
Right.
and that has renowned benefits that people
Oh,
have
for
never
sure.
experienced. So a lot of times it feels a little strange, and you're almost like, "What is going on? What am I supposed to feel?" And then you get into the groove of it, and you're like, "Oh wow! Like I'm actually moving better. I
Right.
have more strength and stuff like that." So that's kind of a long-winded way of answering your question.
No, it's good because I think for cognitively, you have to constantly focus, okay, where am I feeling this?
Yep.
And one of the things like I'll say to clients is, I need you to be present. And I need for you to be able to have anything cognitive, for you to develop that plasticity, we've got to have your brain present with your body. And so for sometimes I'll see them look out the window or do something like that. I'm like, no, I need you present. I need you to feel where we're like, what are we working on right now? If we're working on shoulders, abs, I need you to be present so you feel like what we're doing. And so I think for that to work, for them to feel, okay, where is this working? Where am I feeling it? I think it's really important. I love that because cognitively, you have to be present to feel, to know where it's working. And I think that that goes really well, whether it's a stroke, whether it's MS, whether it's any of them, whether it's rheumatoid, whether it's lupus. It takes us to really have to stop and focus and think.
because so much of that gets clogged with our fog brain and all those things that get stuck. And so I think anytime we have a device that we have to focus on is always good for us cognitively. So I love that idea.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you saying that. It's so
Mhm.
interesting because everyone's different.
Mhm.
This relates to MS, of course, in the fact that some people are at different stages. Some people's body types might be different, whatever it
Mhm.
is. Something that we're realizing day in, day out is the fact that since everyone's different, their brains might respond differently to certain cues. Uh,
Sure.
and we're trying as hard as possible now to diversify our settings in a way that a user can go through our settings and easily be able to test just a few of them to see if they're giving
Sure.
the benefits that they actually need. Because we've heard so much feedback across the board where it's like one setting doesn't work for them, and then they try
Sure.
another setting that we recommend them, and all of a sudden it works great.
Yeah.
So something we're trying to do is give people better muscle awareness and that
Yeah.
perceptive benefit, but for a broader range of conditions, because again, everyone's different and we're still
Yeah.
testing every single day to try and kind of get to the bottom of this.
I'm sure they get frustrated like right away. It's not working. Never mind. Forget it. And so I know that I have to do that too. I'm like, well, wait, you got this. Did you do this one yet? Oh, no. So I'm sure you'll eventually have to have a person on the phone all the time answering, well, wait, you can try this and this, because I'm sure you'll get a lot of that as the product gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So,
Totally, totally. And that's part of the reason too. We have a 30-day return policy that we tell everyone
mhm,
about because again, it's not a magic pill. You might not
right,
necessarily notice this incredible improvement in your movement or your gait or whatever it is on day one. And
right,
a lot of the science shows extreme benefits after 6 to 8 weeks,
right.
which is obviously a bit a ways away from when you
Yeah,
immediately get the product. So we encourage people to try a bunch of things out, see what works for them. Let us know if they need any help. But again, since everyone's different, we just want people to trial it and make sure it's the right
sure.
fit. Because again, we're not selling a magic pill, and it needs to be
Right.
in conjunction with
Yeah,
rehabilitation protocol.
sure.
Like if you don't put in the work, and I know you're a big advocate of getting off the ground and moving your
Yeah,
body and everything along those lines, it's the same goes for our product. You
yeah,
still need to put in the work. It will
right.
probably help you get where you want to be. But it's not, again, it's not just an overnight thing. Um,
Sure.
and
If
I
it's sitting
like,
in your drawer,
yep,
it's not going to work. And I'll
exactly,
often say that if I gave you a list and you're not doing it, if you're not moving it, you're going to lose it. So it all works together. And I can always tell my clients who are going to be successful if they're showing up, if I can see in their eyes they're doing the stuff, then I know we're gonna work together. It's going to be great. But the clients are the people who just put it away.
yep,
It's hard to see, but I always say, if I want this more than you do, it's never going to work, because I can look at someone and say, oh, there can be so much for you. But
hmm,
if I'm wanting it so much more than you do, and that usually my heart is that I'm like, oh, I can see how much this could work for you. But it's got to be what they've got to be ready. And so
yep,
I love that you got that, because it's like you don't want it to sit in someone's drawer. It's like if they're not getting it, if they're not, it doesn't work for them, or they're not going to use it, then send it back. And if they're not happy with it, if they're not using it. So I
yeah,
think that's a great and honest way to put it, that, you can't force someone if they're not ready. And, then they can move on to something else. And that's a really ethical way I think you're doing it, and continuing the research to see what can this work for. And so as you move forward, and of course I'll ask about MS because I get a lot of MS stuff.
mhm.
So how do you see this working for multiple sclerosis?
Yeah, totally. So we've gotten some incredible feedback from MS patients thus far. We
Mm,
really just started reaching this demographic of people because we're not a medical device and we haven't been clinically tested. But a lot of the use cases for our product, like improving strength, improving motor
mm,
function, are relevant to MS patients. But just off the last few months, which is when we've really started to catch the attention of people with MS and people suffering from a stroke,
Right.
and those kind of applications. The initial feedback has really revolved around a few things. The first thing has been pain relief.
Mm.
So this is probably the biggest piece of positive feedback we've gotten from MS patients thus far is our device's recovery settings have been able to reduce the feeling of pins and needles.
Yes, I'm
And
sure.
that is a comment that we have gotten a ton of.
Yeah.
It's seemingly the most surefire bet of how our product can help someone with
Hmm.
MS, which has been great.
Yeah.
Specifically, we've gotten a ton of feedback about doing this in the legs.
Yeah.
We released an ad about drop foot, and a lot of people ended up buying it just for pain relief for their legs
Okay.
specifically. And that feedback's been incredible. Um,
Yeah. Because in the legs is where we get a lot of spasticity. So our
yep.
legs jump and we get spasticity. And then we get the drop foot. And then that's just another pain.
Yep.
That's just like where the foot comes down this way. And then I'm walking. Now I've had MS for over 20 years. So I'm still actually, believe it or not, I'm still at the beginning stage. I never progressed more than that. So I'm still not that I expect you to know all of these things, but relapsing remitting is kind of the first one. And I never progressed, thank God. But I really truly believe that I never, even when I was diagnosed and they said, rest, go to bed, in 5 years you'll be in a wheelchair, 10 years you'll be dead. I was like, that doesn't sound right to me at all. And
Yeah.
so I'm always a rule follower, but with that, I was like, I'm not going to stop moving ever. And so I just started exercising right away. I always was. I was very athletic. I was weightlifting, always in the gym with the boys because I'm like, I loved weights and I ran. And so nothing about that made sense to me. My grandfather had passed away from it, and so did my aunt. And they did the same thing. They just lay down. And I'm like, your body atrophies, like none of this makes sense. So I started right away and I just changed my diet and I stayed strong and now I teach and I'm like, nothing of what they said made any sense to me. So I think that on the same page with you, I just think that this makes so much sense to, now I have a little bit of drop foot. So I get it. Like if I'm, walking or trying to run 3 miles, I'm gonna have it. Now I get it. And I'm like, okay, unacceptable. So I'm working like crazy to fix it because it's just unacceptable for me. So I love that it's gonna help that. I think it will, and I could see how it will with the pulse and with it connecting and helping that. So I can see how it would do that.
Yeah, and I love your mental toughness. I gotta give you a clap for that. That's incredible to hear. And yeah, no, going back to what you mentioned about spasticity, one of the great things that we've come to find is that high frequency vibration has actually been shown by substantial scientific literature to reduce spasticity for
Yeah.
stroke patients and MS patients. And one of the things we're working to do now is create some settings at a variety of different high frequencies that might be able to help these people. But that's definitely one of the things we've been hearing from some of these
Mm.
patients as well. Um, and going back to kind of this list, I guess, of different modalities for local vibration with these MS
Mm.
patients. Another really big one that we found is the ability to improve strength. So
Yeah.
this has also been proven by wide-ranging science, which is the fact that local vibration can dramatically improve isolated strength. So if you're
Hmm.
dealing with weak legs, and let's say you've got drop foot and your tib anterior is just very weak,
Right.
and maybe you struggle to engage it or just feel it working,
Yeah.
our product can come in a lot of handy there. And what a lot of people are coming to us and saying is, I've tried EMS, and it works great when it's on, because
Right.
that EMS is causing those involuntary contractions, those artificial contractions is what we like to say.
Hmm.
But those artificial contractions are only temporary. It's not actually
Yes.
helping me to strengthen the muscle. It's not helping me during my movements.
Yeah.
So we really like to say that our product is a way to
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Move It or Lose It podcast. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed and left a review. Remember, you can find me on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. New episodes of the Move It or Lose It podcast air every other Wednesday. If you have any suggestions for future guests or topics, please visit my website at www.msdisrupted.com. Until next time.